Hey, we're back. This is John.
It's Paul.
Yeah, it's Eric.
As What If Geeks, and we are here with a review of Hawkeye episode 3. Paul missed our review last week of 1 and 2, which dropped the Thanksgiving week. So just real quick, Paul, you caught up with episode 3 today. What did you think of the first couple when they first came out?
I really like this show. I like that it's Hawkeye the person, right? A little bit less superhero-y, at least in the first two. But we've said this before when we were talking about like the difference between the Marvel universe and the DC universe. But the Marvel universe, by and large, maybe I haven't seen Eternals yet, but the Marvel universe, these are all just people, right? That happen to be heroes. And I think a lot of these stories revolve around parts of their lives, and we see them, the family life. Like we see Hawkeye, you see Hawkeye's family in here, and he's just a dad with his kids, and they're, he's got them in New York for Christmas because New York for Christmas time is cool. And he's not, right, the god from space, right? He's just a dude. And he's just a dude that's been hit in the head and shot at and blown up so many times he can hardly hear. I love the idea that there's Rogers the musical. I think that's really clever. And that they went through the thing of like, I know they didn't write an entire musical, but like they're showing you the thing, right? Like there's a Cap and there's the Hawkeye, and there's an Iron Man.
Talked about that last week. It really felt like it really could be a legit musical.
Yeah, like maybe they did write one. But I think
we said we
really
should petition them to release Rogers as a musical.
Yeah.
And that he's there watching the Hawkeye on the stage and just like, oh, this is terrible, I gotta go. I think all that's really clever. It's a cool premise. The first one finishes and you're like, wow, that was not enough. Like I need more of this. So yeah, that's how you roll into episode 3. I think that about the first two. Not enough action for some of those.
Yeah, Eric said he felt they were concentrating on Kate's mother and family life too much, which I think, and we discussed that. I think that it's going to come down to there's going to be a whole lot more revealed back there. Well, not to rehash the whole thing, but like we know, her new fiance Jack Dupree, he's in the comics he's the swordsman, which makes sense because he's got an affinity for swords in the show. But I said that I think her mother is going to have a lot more mob ties because there's a lot of talk in the background that you kind of don't really hear too much, but she seems to know a lot more than she lets on and that kind of thing. And there's little cues like when Hawkeye brings her to her apartment, he's like, "This is your place." She says, "I inherited it." I was like, "Is that from her father?" Because both her parents had mob ties, and she lives above a pizzeria. Maybe that was one of the places they would collect the money from, or it's the front or something, So stuff like that. So then I said and I'll repeat it now, just because if I don't repeat my bullshit theories, then they, they don't come true anyway. But this one might actually come true. Mephisto. I said last time, I said my Mephisto for this one is Kingpin. I'm like, I just think because they talked about Echo, and at the end of episode 2, you see Maya Lopez, right? Who's Echo in the comic books. And she works for Kingpin. I was telling Eric, I'm like, I think just Kingpin makes sense for this because there's got to be a bigger bad. Something's going on, pulling all these strings, and there's a lot of low-level mob shit going on that they're in right now in New York. So it would just make sense. And then we're going to get into episode 3, where...
And there's always been this, Marvel's always had this sort of, it feels like there's 2 levels of heroes, right? There's like the street level sort of Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, some of those guys that like, even in the comics, never battled Thanos, right? Or Thanos big bad, right? They're always, it's Kingpin, it's drug guys, it's the mob, it's that level, right? And then you've got like Cap and Thor and the Hulk and the fighting like the enemies from above, sort of. And Hawkeye's drifted between those worlds. Like he is an Avenger, but he's the least powerful Avenger, so he's better at that sort of street level.
Yeah, and there was two things too from the first two episodes that I really enjoyed. That there's the one when he leaves the musical, he stops in the bathroom where he gets asked for a selfie, but when he's there, when he first goes to the urinal, somebody graffitied it and says Thanos was right, and it cuts to his face, and he actually kind of considers it for a second, like, like he doesn't completely disagree with the graffiti. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then in episode 2, when they put him up to fight in the whole LARP tournament to get his suit back, he actually, like, as he walks up there, he's like, I fought Thanos. Yeah. Like, which is really funny. All right. So, yes, so far the series has been good. Now we'll get into episode 3. I'm just going to go ahead and throw a spoiler flag up there because we don't have time for no spoilers. Title of this thing is Echoes, and it pretty much, just like the last one, cuts in immediately where the previous episode left off. So, no, actually, sorry, it starts with a flashback this time. We're in 2007. I like how Paul wrote a simpler time, pre-COVID. We're introduced to Maya Lopez, who's Echo in the comics. She's a deaf girl. She's with her father. He tells her she's not going to a school for the deaf. She complains about it, but he tells her that it'll allow her to walk between worlds, kind of. And she's just got to use, her sight and her abilities to kind of manage her way, or manage her path in these two different worlds. Yeah, we also learn of an uncle that we don't see, but he does say when she's at a karate tournament, he says, all right, I gotta go, but uncle will take you home. And she just nods her head. And then he steps out of frame, and a person walks into the frame in a black suit, and you can tell just in that one shot, obviously she's a little girl, so he looks big, but he looks big, right? And this is his black suit, and this hand reaches in, kind of, whoever the dude is chuckles and like pinches her cheek a little bit, and then she goes off to do whatever, or she does the fight, and then she walks up and her uncle walks over, however that happens. But he's impressed with her. He pinches her cheek. But to me, I'm just saying this is definitely Kingpin. It makes sense that it would be her uncle and that she's going to go to work for him. And it's mentioned a few times within the rest of this episode that, her uncle is a big deal. There's a couple times in there where they say, like, your uncle's going to be pissed, when she's doing her own thing.
Question is going to be, if it's Kingpin, are they going to get Vincent D'Onofrio to be the Daredevil Kingpin? Like, he's great in that.
He is. And last week when we talked about it, Eric said that, Eric, you said you saw something or read something where that they might try, when they bring Kingpin in, to do something a little more CGI-ish where he's bigger, or, I mean, they can do camera tricks too to make him bigger. But I think bringing Vincent D'Onofrio in makes sense. Like you said, he's amazing in the role. And 2, Kevin Feige just got done saying that Matthew Cox is going to be, or Charlie Cox is going to be, Matthew Murdock is going to be Daredevil whenever we do see him. So if you're going to bring the one, you might as well bring them both.
Yep.
All right.
And you know what I didn't realize until after we did the show last week? They're doing an Echo spinoff series. Yeah.
Everybody's like doing a spinoff series before this.
Yeah, I totally missed the announcement. It was actually several months ago. I didn't even see it. And I was reading up on Hawkeye stuff. There was an interview with Alaqua Cox, and she said in that she was doing a spinoff series. I'm like,
Well-
oh, crap, okay.
Well, I mean, in the comics, Echo doesn't stay a bad guy. I think she even takes on the Ronin persona at some point, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I read those comics.
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's plenty of connections now that you're right on this one. If they don't do it, they're assholes, basically. Well, I mean, okay, so you have Echo, you have Kazi the Clown, who's also a kingpin, whatever, underling. That scene with Maya as a kid with the uncle. You got Vincent tweeting, "I love these Marvel series," and then linking the Hawkeye thing.
Right.
The Fat Man Auto Body Shop. I don't know if you noticed that. The auto body shop name is Fat Man.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Yeah. So come on. I mean, look, they were assholes when they didn't give me Mephisto. If they don't give me Kingpin, it is. All right. Who wants to take over? Because I talked the entire last episode.
I'll do it. Okay.
Well, what do you got? You got about 8 minutes of backstory on Echo before we hop into the end of what we got left on season 2, right?
Yeah,
So
the key there is she sees her father get killed.
Yeah, Ronan rolling through in one of the hits that took place in the time of the blip.
Yeah.
And one of them is Mai's father. And there's a scene, and so you know that her motivation now is to get back at Ronan. The tracksuit mafia guys have kidnapped. Clint allowed himself to get captured to find out sort of what they know and what's going on. Kate breaks in at the end of episode 2, falls right down through the roof, and now he's got both of them. There's a cool scene when Maya comes out and sees his hearing aid. Mm-hmm. He's like, and she signs to him, "Are you deaf?" And he's like, "No, just hard of hearing." And then at some point, he finds a rough patch on what he's being held on, gets out of the duct tape, runs, she confronts him, they have a fight. She roundhouse kicks him in the head. Hearing aid goes flying out. She steps on it and ends up telling him he's better off without it.
Yeah.
And this starts a long action / fight scene with Clint evading and beating up the tracksuit mafia guys. He ends up in the office getting his bow and some arrows back so he can hold Echo in place, shoots a couple guys in a way that looks non-lethal, shoots through one guy's gun and rips the duct tape holding Kate, so they can both get out of the building into a car.
Yeah, that was an awesome shot.
Yeah.
Reminds you why he's Hawkeye.
Yeah, car chase scene is really cool, with them in like the 70s Lincoln Continental, and she shooting arrows that like have the purple goo, one exploding arrow, one that like sends these I don't know, almost like tentacles out that like gather stuff along, so it slows the car down. And
a bunch of trick arrows. Yeah, my favorite line of that whole thing is when she shoots the exploding arrow and the van flips up. Yeah. She's like, there are 4 more, even more dangerous than that one.
Because he's like, don't use this one. Nope, not this one.
Yeah. He's like, not this one too dangerous.
I like the whole comedy of that scene where she's like, yeah, you can label them or something. Like,
yeah. Could you label?
And then he doesn't have his hearing aids, so he can't hear shit she's saying. And she's like telling him, like, this will be a lot easier if you're facing the other way. And then at some point he's like, this will be a lot easier if I was facing the other way. And he like flips it around.
Yeah.
Everything they did with their communication back and forth when he does not have his hearing aid was hilarious. Because they do that joke a couple times where he says everything like 30 seconds after she says it.
There's one where she ends up shooting one of like the plunger arrows. He has to go get it because they need it for something else. And then the coolest, I think, they're on the bridge. Their cars turned perpendicular to the road. They're coming. Yes. And so she shoots an arrow up in the air, and then he shoots one, and you see the tip of one of the arrows hit him, so that when it hits it, it has Pym particles. It becomes this giant thing that like rams through the back of the truck and blows it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really funny because when he hands it to her, she's like, "What does this one do?" And she's like, "Please be something." And she shoots it. And then when he hits that one, I was like, "Oh, this is amazing."
That's pretty cool. And then he goes back and retrieves the suction cup arrow because he ends up using it as they get away, to hold on to the subway cars as they go by.
Yeah.
I think then we get this, they do the communication thing again because they're on the subway, and she's like, "I got to go walk the dog," and blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't hear any of that, but he turns, he's like, "You should probably let the dog out. It's been by himself all day."
Yeah, because while she's saying that, he says, "You're right. You probably are one of the best archers in the world." And he goes, then he does that. He repeats everything verbatim what she says.
Yeah.
"You should probably walk the dog. He's been cooped up all day."
Yeah. And then you see him, like, they're in this weird, they're on this sidewalk waiting for some store to open, with nothing but Chinese symbols on the door. It's like some hearing aid store, right? And then it's the least glamorous sort of Avenger thing ever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I just like that humanity. And then, so they're eating, and I love when they do this because they've done this a couple times in different Marvel things. She's talking to him about, she's like, "You have to work on your marketing. Your suit, you need a whole new look, you need a whole new thing." And he's like, "No, I'm a ghost. I'm supposed to get in and out. I'm also not a role model." And she's like, "Yes, you are. You're away from your family. You've saved the world, blah, blah, blah." And then she's like, "I've got an idea for what you should wear." And she shows him this really sort of terrible kid drawing, but it's the comic book suit, right? She's like,
Yeah.
"Imagine it's all in purple." And he's like, "What's that on the head?" It's an H for Hawkeye. And it's got the wing eye things that he used to have in the comics. And he's like, "That's terrible."
Yeah, he's
and
like,
my wife would leave me.
That's for Hawkeye. Yeah, that's not happening.
yeah. My wife would leave me if I wasn't like that.
It's got little wings.
They've done that a couple different times in Luke Cage. One of the first episodes of Luke Cage, when he escapes from prison, he has to cross this river or something like that. And when he gets out, hanging on the line is a yellow shirt cut open, and like blue pants, and he has these things on from prison, and so it looks like his 70s outfit, and he just looks at it and he's like, "No."
Yeah.
There's been a number of times where they've done something like that, like showed the old comic book art, or in some way made fun of it, right? Like in WandaVision, Wanda's Halloween costume is her comic book outfit.
Yeah. And Vision looks like a really bad 80s cosplay. Yeah. Now, before he gets his hearing aid back, there was one, I guess, important scene in there where they have like a bonding moment where his phone rings and he thinks it's his wife. Okay. So he starts to try to talk, but he can't hear. So he's talking like it's his wife. And then she runs over and waves at him like, "No." And she writes on the page, "It's a little boy." And realizes it's his youngest son. Kid woke up, everybody else is asleep. He's bored. So she writes down like quick little cliff notes of what the kid is saying so Clint can respond as if he was hearing him. And then he even ends it with like, "It was really good to hear your voice. I love you." And he hangs up, and she just kind of like gives him a look like, "Well, we got through that," and he just says, "Thanks." Like, so there was a bonding moment there that they had, that where up until then, he's basically, outside of the fact that they had to fight together, he's been trying to just get rid of her so he can handle his mission. So they had that little bonding moment. So they've had two. They had that, and then the fight scene, the two of them together look pretty good. So so there's that. So he gets his hearing aid back, which I also like the part in the diner when she's talking to him before she shows him the drawing. She does this whole thing, and then he puts the hearing aid back in, and she's like, "Has that been out the whole time?" This is what my father used to do to my mother. When she used to start talking to him while she's cooking, he would just look at her and go, and shut it off. All right, let's move on.
They decide that they need information on Maya, on tracksuit guys, on a bunch of different stuff. And so Kate has the idea that they're going to go get it from her mom's computer, head of Bishop Security. So they go to her not her apartment over the pizza place, but like the place where she grew up. The looks like a penthouse. And there's a funny scene where Clint's like, "I'm in the wrong business."
Yeah, he's like, "This is an apartment."
So she manages to sort of hack into the server, and they start downloading some information. And then Clint, goes to look around the place, and as he goes in one of the hallways, the Ronin blade is there. He's like, "Oh," and it's Jack holding the Ronin blade, and that's sort of where the episode ends.
Yep. Yeah. So
no credit scene, because I stayed around to watch like Marvel, these shows do, like you end up with like 10 different languages of like, when we dubbed it into Japanese, here are the actors that did it. Like
I noticed that too. Like the show was over at like 37 minutes, but the whole thing was like 43 minutes. I'm like, there gotta be something. Nope, just the fucking credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 minutes of credits.
Hopefully the last 2 or 3, but at least the last 2 will have some type of end credits thing. Definitely the last one. Hopefully it'll have something that'll kind of lead into more of a Young Avengers thing or whatever, because we're building them. We're building the Young Avengers quick. Yeah, overall, I enjoyed this episode. I like the bonding between the two of them. They're growing together as a team. Yeah, it was good. I'm enjoying this show a lot. I like this a lot. So, you guys?
Yeah. I appreciate too that even if Echo is going to get the her own spinoff or whatever, that they've sort of invested just enough time to say, why she's obsessed with Ronan and sort of what her hunt is, right? Which of course has important ties to Clint Barton, and it could have even been Clint that killed her father. We don't.
Oh no, it was. Well,
we don't know for sure, but I mean, it seems like they're pointing towards that. But
I don't know. It looked like Ronan that was in that building attacking them. So who knows? Like you said, we'll see. Yeah, it could be that he didn't kill him, but it doesn't look too good. he was in a dark place in Infinity War, or after Infinity War. All right. Well, I am looking forward to Wednesday. Cannot wait. I get another episode of Chucky and another episode of Hawkeye. Whee! All right. Anybody got anything else on this one? Nope. All right. Well, like always, like, subscribe, ring a bell, comment. Let us know what you think of the series so far. If you're excited about the Echo series that I just found out about.
I was today years old when I found out there was going to be an Echo series.
That's right. Hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that happy shit. All right. Good night, Tony.
Good night, one-eyed dog.
Good night. What?
Which sounds dirtier than it is, but there's a one-eyed dog.
Good night, William Lopez, forever.
Woo. See you Wednesday, Kingpin.
Yeah.